Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to episode 1 of my Talking Heads series called Bay Talks About Blah. Because I have no better name for it, we're going to be talking about the Tomb of Sargeras, and I am starting off this discussion video in the cathedral above the actual tomb itself, with graphical glitches and all, because I wanted to bring something up real quick, and I was actually curious about this. In the Tomb of Sargeras, we have all the pillars of creation. And it's not loaded anymore here, but right here would be the shield. And it is one of the locks, because it was brought up the other day, that where is the other... Can you see the images when you're down in the tomb? And we'll be there in a moment due to the magic of editing. Down in the tomb below us, you see the images when you actually activate all 4 pillars of creation. The 5th, apparently, I don't know where it is. If anyone knows where the Eye of Aman'Thul was used in the Tomb of Sargeras, please drop a comment down below, because I don't know where it is. Some say it was to stabilize the portal that we take to the ship, to kill Jaden's ship, but, you know, beats me. But I just kind of want to talk about my general thoughts about the Tomb of Sargeras before Mythic opens up today, and just kind of go through what I thought from Heroic and Normal, and sort of just take it from there. I have a couple of different talking points and topics to go through. Of course, I wouldn't do anything without notes, right? So let's just dive right into general thoughts and feelings about the Tomb of Sargeras raid. So, general thoughts about the Tomb of Sargeras are going to start on the outside of the tomb. It is a giant circular structure overall. But if you look down here below where I am currently standing, you see how there's sort of an ovalish way about this path that goes around the Tomb of Sargeras, this outside area that we do world quests in. There's the summoning stone. Over there was the entrance to the cathedral. And this entrance... and you can even see through the portal to see the inside of the dungeon that current room is. This entrance is actually on the same plane as the entrance to the raid. However, that is just not true. Not every raid in World of Warcraft is totally correct on the outside or the inside. That doesn't matter wholly. It's just that if you look down below here, there's this huge, very oval-like structure beneath and in all of this goop, all this fell goopity-goop, right? That is actually very more accurate to when we zone in and see how the structure breaks down. So when we enter the Tomb of Sargeras, we're brought to this room here. And obviously, that door is not the same door on the outside, but it's a green, swirly, gobbledygook portal. So where it brings us, obviously, isn't totally one-to-one of just walking through a door. So on the mini-map, you will notice, when you do this yourself, that you come into this long hallway, and you're in a very oval room. This room is that area underneath the outside portion. We are sort of down below that opening area. Now, up there, to my left, and right above us, and on the right over there, that is the cathedral itself, those 2 floors. That is the ground floor where my mouse is pointing right here. This is where you enter, and this is where Mephistroth pops up and it's like, "Rar, Illidan, rar, rar, rar." This is that area right here. And you go all the way around that outside edge, and then you go up a staircase up there, you go up on that side, you go all the way around that side, and there's the bridge right here. This is where Agronax, that giant corrupted tree, floats in that hanging garden. This area right here is where the first boss of the Cathedral of the Eternal Night is, right here. Right above this beautiful drop-down tier of Elune-shaped overhead. And that brings me to my first point, is that the architecture and structuring of this entire dungeon plus raid combination is really fantastic. There are lots of little nooks and crannies you can walk around in. There was a little less than I was hoping for. That was actually, I was hoping for a lot more doors to open just to other parts of the place and walking around different corridors. Not as many as I would have liked, but still a lot of them. So I think the overall architecture and the art design that the team has put into this No one's sitting around going like, oh, the art team in World of Warcraft is slacking off. Oh, they're terrible. Obviously not. And this is a huge accomplishment, I think, as a player, to be able to experience a intertwining dungeon that actually has multiple parts and wings that aren't all like Dragon Soul, where you just stand in the middle and you port to one side, and you come out to the middle, you port to the other side. Very compartmentalized. Like, it doesn't really feel congruent, and it doesn't feel like it's all mushed together properly. But there are parts of this dungeon that, you know, are in the raid. When you're in the dungeon, when you walk over to this balcony, you can see Atragon, one of the Inquisitors, standing about right where I am right now, probably a little bit forward, and he's holding off. And then there's all the Legion False soldiers that are fighting here. That's why all the corpses are here when you actually zone into the raid. And that is pretty fantastic that it actually integrates that directly. Because even in ICC, not all of those dungeons, the ICC dungeons, were in ICC. Because there weren't, like, obviously the Halls of Reflection were in the actual tower itself, but there's no Pit of Sauron that's that huge pit outside ICC in the player world, only when you go in the dungeon, right? There's a little bit of that where, like, you get some of that connection point, but it's not all the same. So not every dungeon connects as well, and I think is a definite treat to have that all put together and just feel really well made. Not only that, this portal, when you actually get to go down, the architecture immediately changes, and you get to walk down past, you know, the Maiden of Guitar Hero's balls into where the elven structure was built upon this. I don't know if it's a world engine directly, but it definitely is a huge Titan construct. Then it goes down even more, and there's a lot of lore boner material down here. I don't think we've had a raid that actually captured, like, multiple feelings at the same time. That you have this Ulduar aesthetic and that huge elven sweeping architecture right above, and of course the taint of the Fel. And I did go all the way down and sort of track the positioning of this pillar. This is the Fel pillar that goes all the way up through the ceiling. And this circular pillar right here that we're in right now, that pillar right there connects to the one behind the Demonic Inquisition, and that is what shoots out of the top of the cathedral. I think there's some bouncing around that it goes through there, but just having this all put together really helps aid to just the overall feel of the entire dungeon itself, the entire raid, the whole thing together. But not every raid needs to have that sort of connectivity to it. It can all just kind of be like Dragon Soul. But then it doesn't ever feel like it's telling you a story. And I'm a film kid, and if you've been around the channel long enough, you know that I've talked about that quite a bit, that there is sort of a cinematic grammar to how movies are put together, how movies tell a story, how they are all connected. You know, they have a beginning, middle, and end, rising action, falling action, climax, etc. And if a raid tells you a story as you go through it, that really, I think, helps the point that they're trying to put together this huge narrative for us to experience. And I think this is one of the first raids that really has done this, I feel, since Ulduar. Ulduar had the sieging, the exploration of the outside, the understanding that these creatures and things live outside the raid, and you go inside and you learn about the different, like, almost covens of each of the Titan Keepers, and the whole Algalon side room. Like, all these bits and pieces really fell together in there. And I don't think since the sort of ICC level, Ulduar level, have we really gotten something that really felt like it had a beginning, a middle, and an end, even in the raid itself. The Nightmare is just like, oh, there's nightmare stuff, and then the climax is just you're in a giant, mushy, gray room. The Nighthold had a little more of that, but it was almost the same the entire place. Even the coming up through with Trilliax, you're still in the entire structure is the same, right? There's no really different stories being told, but the overall story being told here in the Tomb of Sargeras feels really, really cool. Well then, what about the encounters? What about the bosses in the Tomb of Sargeras? And honestly, everything in normal and heroic felt pretty fine. There was a huge skill curve, skill ceiling raise after the first 6 in Heroic, I would say. The final 3 are a gigantic step up. And I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that, because there isn't really like a curve that happens. It's just right off the bat, most of the early bosses are just really easy. And then, after a little time, they just get ramped up. I talked about this on the broadcast, that I felt that the volume meter on the first 5 was around a 2 to a 3. And then all of a sudden, it just jumped up to like an 8. And then Gul'dan and the Avatar before were a whole different story. They just immediately careened up to like an 11. And that's not to say it's a bad thing. I was just really expecting to be a little bit of a smoother curve in the difficulty of those raid encounters up to that point. Like a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. The Mythic stuff will probably be a whole lot different. And there's one prevailing thought I have toward the Mythic encounters that is way better than the Nighthold, is that there are very few bosses that are just AoE nonsense. There's a few. There is a few. Quick shout out to Gul'dan's broken shoulder pad. There are a few bosses. Mr. Sasveen is a huge AoE nonsense fight. Harjatan has phases of AoE. And the Demonic Inquisition has some ads that join the encounter. But there aren't just ads on every single encounter. Desolate Host is basically complete cleave all the time, more like cleave and control. And Gul'dan essentially has the Gul'dan eyes in the form of the Shadow Reflections. But that's only really about 4, maybe 3.5 of the encounters. We'll do 4. So less than half of the fights have a bunch of nonsense ads just thrown on there. One of my viewers on Twitter made a Photoshop of my face over Salt Bay, the YouTube Instagram. I guess he's more an Instagram sensation, right? With the whole salt on his elbow, shoulder kind of combination, all crooked over. Then he's dripping salt off. Anyway, but he put that, but he put like Murlocs in the salt, and it's just sprinkle some ads on there, because that's all Blizzard seems to do to make fights more difficult. Is just sprinkle some ads on there, and I'm glad that that is not the case in the entire raid, that it's not just ads and ads and ads and ads and ads on every single encounter. All right then, so there is a little bit more about Mythic Tomb that I did want to also touch on. And when I was looking for the dungeon journal, there was some interesting things that start arising. And it didn't really occur to me exactly during the heroic and normal clears, but I think there's a very awkward mechanic prevalent in almost every single encounter in some way, shape, or form, except one, in all of the Tomb of Sargeras. And I gotta peek over to my notes real quick here. Quick tip, do not touch the floor when it looks like this. It summons a really scary Guardian ad. You can avoid that totally throughout your adventures in the Tomb of Sargeras if you do not want to have to deal with all that extra trash. But the one mechanic I'm talking about is soaks. There are so many soak mechanics in this raid, it is actually silly. On Goroth on Mythic, there are falling meteors to soak at the same time in groups of 3 or 4 across your entire 20-man roster. Demonic Inquisition, inside when you go to confess, you gotta soak those little bobbly boops to pop out. Harjatan, don't soak the puddles, so it's an anti-soak. On the Sisters of the Moon, you have to soak the arrow through the raid. On the Mistress, Sasveen, there are puddles on the ground to soak the tornadoes, the jellyfish. There's also, on Mythic, there is the buffer fish you have to grab and sort of keep, but then also get off your head, and then not soak the shark that comes to eat you. Maiden of Guitar Hero, obviously, soak the orbs. Fallen Avatar, soak the fissures, and soak the marks in Phase 2. And on Gul'dan, you need to, of course, soak that meteor shower that you have to deal with in the later phases, the intermissions and onward. And it's so weird to me that that is like the really prevalent mechanic Blizzard has decided to hone in on throughout all of this entire raid, is that everything that has a soak mechanic. Just stack up and soak, or immunity and soak. That is their huge push in this raid, which is fine. It's just really weird that is their chosen mechanic that they're pushing really, really hard, right? Soak everything on every boss except the Reliquary of Souls 2.0, right? The Soul Engine, the Desolate Host, doesn't really have a soak mechanic that you need to. You do have the Scream that you have to technically push off of you and let cast so that you can put that on the other ads to let them soak it. It's how the whole raid works, I guess, so we'll have to just deal with it. It's fine. Now, Mythic starts very soon, today, as this video is going up. And everyone always asks, like, who do you think's going to win? I do interview the world first people that win the world first race. We've only been interviewing Exorcist and Method so far. I don't know if that's ever going to change, but I am curious if it ever will. There is a very real problem with the world first system and the race and raid program. It's very fun for us to watch, and lots of guilds get involved and duke it out and blah, 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 get in there. But the amount of time it takes for you as a guild, as a group of people, to have the time, the drive, and the ability to tackle this when it's super min-maxy and you're like class stacking and swapping out different classes and specs and what's gonna be the best and how do we figure this out and how do we prepare for this, which is why I think I'm gonna be coming into this next World First interview with a very different lens that I understand a bit more as I've been wading through Legion and we've done the whole first tier and we've kind of learned this. AP doesn't matter as much anymore, but that's the question. How many Concordance of Legion Fall are these top guilds going to have? I have almost 7, and that's a lot, I think. Are they going to have 10, 12? More than that? We'll have to wait and find out. I don't have any, hat in the race, as it were. I don't have a bet to put on a guild. I just want to interview these players that are doing really crazy things in this game. And I don't really know who's going to win. I'm okay with it being Method or Exorcist. They have won all the last raid races so far. I don't think anyone else is going to step up. I don't think anyone else is going to push forward that extra 10 miles to really challenge those guilds. I really don't think that's going to be a thing that they work towards. But that aside, I do think it's going to be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure it'll be a 2-week clear. I imagine it'll definitely be a 2-week clear. I would be surprised otherwise. And I think Tuesday into Wednesday, we're going to see the top guilds immediately getting down 5 bosses. I think those final 4 bosses are where things definitely get a little nitty gritty. And the only thing that really stops the top guilds ever is math. The mechanics will not slow them down. The math will slow them down. The numbers required, the amount of tuning that they have to do within their own roster to beat checkpoints or encounter timers or anything of that nature. That is what will slow them down. Nothing else will. And we'll have to just wait and see if there are kills with 9 hunters or 17 fury warriors or all arms warriors or no shadow priests. We will have no idea until we start seeing kills coming out in the future, and we'll have to wait and find out. Well, if you made it this far in episode 1 of Bay Talks About, then I appreciate it. If you enjoy just the sort of scenic backdrop, I know I don't have a camera tool to make all my sweeping motions really smooth, so it's just my doing it by hand. I was actually going to record a video that was very, very scenic about tying the architecture of both the dungeon and the raid together, so to give you like a walkthrough with just the music. But the camera tool, machinima tool to use is broken. It doesn't work anymore for Legion. So the end of this video, I'm kind of just going to tally on about a few little things that you may or may not know about the Tomb of Sargeras. So if you do not want any like spoilers or lore-gasmy moments, then you can turn off the video now. If you enjoyed it though, you can toss it a like, or just realistically, just as I bump into a pillar there, hey, get out of the way. We're talking about things. You're not a spoiler. Then you can always just subscribe to the channel for more of these in the future. I do want to do discussion videos more, but I don't want to spoil anybody if they don't want to be spoiled. So this is your warning now that if you don't want to be spoiled... Alright. Spoiler time. This will be kind of like rough. I'm not going to really worry about this. I'm down here in the priestess's room, the Sisters of the Moon. This is the big priestess conclave area vestibule thing with the little pool in the ground. There are these marks on the walls. These are the marks of Gul'dan. And the original Gul'dan, our Gul'dan, Gul'dan version 1.0, put these here when he was traveling through. And if you click on them, you will become Gul'dan. You'll have an action bar with a few abilities on it. You can throw around this giant orb. You can do a Fell Scythe. And you can also channel the Fell Efflux. You are friendly to all NPCs in this entire raid. You only have HP equivalent to whatever HP you had when you clicked on them. But no NPCs will aggro you, and you can attack your raid mates. You can attack your allies, your friends. You can try to get them killed. So next, in the main chamber of the moon, once you defeat Gorgoth, and if you go up those stairs, you will go to the Demonic Inquisition. We are forced to go down this way, into the goop and underbelly and the rock bed that the entire tomb is built upon. So all the Naga bosses reside. All the Naga, all the Murlocs that sort of moved in this area. And there are some little bits and pieces here that you kind of see that people have sort of made their way through. This looks like it might just be Murloc little encampment there and the seaweed bed at that side. And through here, where we fight Harjatan. Nothing really important in this little area except a transition moment. There's some Murlocs here, little Murloc huts. But Harjatan is right there. You fight him. Sasveen is up here on this giant open clamshell with a pearl behind her, of course. While the Murlocs are jumping up on the sort of like Caves of Moria style. And if you look down here, there is definitely a definitive drop. Drop down here. There's a little area of awkwardly textured water. There's like this weird broken line here. And right in this small side is another mark of Gul'dan. However, this one has a bit of lore behind it. We find Gul'dan talking to the acolytes, the other warlocks that came with him into the tomb way back in the day. Again, you always will turn into Gul'dan when you do use the marks on the wall. They have a respawn. They will respawn when they reset of the instance, like the soft reset, but they will not stay up for the entire time you're in here. If you click on them, they will not come back up. That I've found, anyway. And again, you will be Gul'dan, and you can go attack your allies and swim awkwardly as a big ghost orc. There are 2 more of these. So let's go find them, shall we? Continuing on our quest to find all the other marks of Gul'dan, back in the main room, instead of going downstairs to the Naga bosses, you would come around here to the right. Now, because this place is not super linear, technically after Gorgoth, you can kind of go, or Gorgoroth, Gorgoroth, you can kind of go both ways. You can go down to Nagas, you can go up to the Demonic Inquisition over there, and then you can go down here to the Sisters of the Moon and the Soul Engine. But if you turn right here and go around this corner, there is a door on the way in. This is the entrance over here. That's the little dwarf. There's a mark up here on the wall. This one right behind this door that does not open. That's where you enter the raid, right there. This is another mark of Gul'dan. There is no cinematic or anything little here. Just you turn into Gul'dan. And then if you keep going around, head down to the sister's room. There is another door that opens. This all sort of wraps up to my whole like little extra story bits. We haven't still found anything else in here. But that goes down to the Sisters of the Moon. This door right here. You go down that way. Again, don't touch the glowy purple floor tiles. This door right here opens. It does not have like a hover or anything. It does not have a name. Open this door here, walk in, and you will find yourself in a small little chapel. lined with the same kind of trappings that are always there. But over in this corner is our Gul'dan. Right there. He has no head, as the lava hurts me. There's his staff and his book. There are his shoulders and his crazy demonic back spikes. Obviously his skull was with Illidan. And there's the final mark of Gul'dan right here. And if we click this mark of Gul'dan, there's a little extra bit that you get to watch. And that's where our Gul'dan, original MK1 version 1, the OG, died searching in the Tomb of Sargeras back in Warcraft 3. There's sort of a mini story here. You can kind of follow along with the pieces of the puzzle and sort of put them all together. But those are the 4 marks of Gul'dan. If you want to use them to attack your raid, be very careful because you only have as much HP as you actually have. And you can definitely get walloped pretty easily and kill. But that is the little walkthrough and talking about the Tomb of Sargeras. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments about what your thoughts on the Tomb of Sargeras, leave them down below. And we can definitely talk about them. I always keep up with my comment section for at least a few days after the videos go live. And if there's a good conversation going, then I will keep up with it even longer. Thank you for listening to and tuning in to episode number 1 of many to come of Bay Talks About something. Probably World of Warcraft related. And I will see you all in the next video.